Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about the 1973 independent horror film Don't Look in the Basement, which is also known as The Forgotten. IMDb uses the formal title, Wikipedia the latter. It has been released under other titles as well, but those are the two most common. And at the Stevens Sanitarium, which is a secluded rural mental health institute, the chief doctor believes that the best way to treat insanity is to allow the patients to freely act out of their realities in the hopes that they will snap out of it. Now, if that sounds like a recipe for a malpractice suit to you, well, it's not one that Dr. Stevens himself will need to worry about, because his novel approach to mental health comes to rather an abrupt end at the hands of an axe-wielding patient. Oopsie. Thus it is that when new ward nurse Charlotte Beale arrives at the sanitarium, she is greeted not by Dr. Stevens, but by his colleague, Dr. Geraldine Masters. Dr. Masters appears committed to continuing with Dr. Stevens' unusual approach to treatment. That would probably be a bit upsetting all by itself, but the longer Charlotte spends at the sanitarium, the more convinced she becomes that something far more sinister is afoot. So Don't Look in the Basement was filmed for a bare $100,000 and widely distributed to drive-in theatres in the 70s, often playing in a double feature with Wes Craven's Last House on the Left. Now, they're quite different films, so I'm not sure how that particular pairing came about. Likely it was just a case of they're both horror movies with the same distribution company. Last House on the Left is notorious for its high level of sexualised violence, and Don't Look in the Basement is definitely not cut from the same cloth. There is some sex and some violence, but not generally together, and the violent content is considerably more mild. This film is not the same gruesome shock fest that you might expect given the movie it was often paired with. But the question then, of course, is, well, what kind of movie is it? And the answer is, not very good one. Let's talk about why. So, sometimes when I watch an otherwise drab film, there comes a moment where the movie suddenly bursts out with a clever idea or a really well-executed scene, and a light bulb goes on in my head. Aha! I think to myself. This is the thing that made them think this movie was worth making. It's clearly the film's signature idea, the moment in the narrative that's supposed to set it aside from the pack. And this is one such film. Which, to give Don't Look in the Basement its credit, that puts it ahead of those movies that don't even have one good idea. Now, the one good idea in this film, it's not particularly original, surprising. I think you might get it. I got it before it happened, but the movie does a solid job of setting it up, and so the reveal is a really satisfying moment in the movie, and it is the scene in the movie I'm like, this is the thing that makes people sit up and pay attention to the film. The problem the movie has, and it's a problem it singularly fails to overcome, is that one single good idea or solidly executed sequence is not enough to support an entire film. You want to make a 22-minute TV episode? Sure. Then it can work. A lot of Twilight Zone episodes are really built around one idea, with the entire episode constructed around it. But when you have to support an entire 90-minute runtime, one good idea is not going to stretch it. You're going to end up with an hour still to fill. And Don't Look in the Basement's approach to that challenge appears to be to pack the film with scene after scene of repetitive, uninteresting creepiness. Hey, look! The camera and the script loudly proclaim. What's happening here is creepy and weird, right? And so is what's happening here and here. And, well, no, not really. Mostly it's just tedious. Maybe if the creepy and weird was a lot more subtle and less frequent early on, and then, you built a growing sense of ease by slowly escalating, but that doesn't happen. Instead, you get a situation where 10 minutes in, you're already asking, why is Nurse Beale staying here? It's clearly deeply unsafe. And the movie just doesn't offer an answer to that question, which rather detracts from the experience of watching it. Now, it's probably self-evident that a cheapy 1970s horror film is not the place to look for a particularly nuanced or authentic depiction of mental illness. But even allowing for the low expectations inherent in the kind of film this is, Don't Look in the Basement is flagrantly unconcerned with depicting anything but the most hackneyed and contrived of movie madness. We've got the ubiquitous woman who insists that a plastic doll is her baby, the man who spouts random jargon. He's a former judge, so it's all courtroom talk in this movie. And of course, because we're a cheapy, exploitative 1970s movie, a nymphomaniac. Yeah, because, got to get your naked bosoms in, don't you? Well, yeah. You don't really, but the character exists purely for that purpose. And look, taken alone, this kind of slightly tawdry and deeply insensitive stuff, particularly occurring as it does in a cheap 1970s horror film, might not really register as an issue. But I wanted to call it out here because it's a good example of the film's generally hackneyed, low-effort approach to writing. The mental illness in here is just designed to create shocking scenes and allow for some prurient content. And generally speaking, that's the approach of the movie in general. The minimum effort is being expended to justify a bit of bloobs or a bit of blood. So, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess the film's title has the benefit of truth going for it, because you definitely shouldn't look in this basement for entertainment. You're not going to find it. So, next time, I'm going to look at the 1944 adventure film, To Have and Have Not. But that is indeed going to be next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.